Good evening, everybody. It's just about 3 minutes past 5 now. I'm Joe Spence, Master of Dulwich College, one of the co-directors of SSLP, and I'll give it just a couple of minutes more while you're watching the, if you're going to watch again, the reel of the photographs, and then we'll get started. Numbers are still rising. No. So shall I say that as I start in 60 seconds? When the photographs come to the end of their next reel round. Brilliant. Lovely to see those photos. Good evening, everybody. Lovely to see numbers still rising, but it's stabilized now around 65. So that might be our number for the evening. But I'm delighted that you can join us at this virtual launch of Southwark Schools Learning Partnership 2021-22. As those of you who've been with us in past years know, this is a chance for us to look back briefly at the year that's just been, to celebrate that and to give newcomers, new members of staff in all our schools, the chance to see the sort of work to which they can contribute, and then to give you a preview of the things that have already been set up ready for next year. We've just started with that show reel of the winning photographs from the photographic competition. So let me just offer a thank you for work with SSLP over many years, which maybe Alice at JAGS can take back to Rob Wallace, who created that competition. And it will go on now beyond Rob running it, but it's been one of the lovely staples of the partnership in recent times. My job today, in addition to welcoming you, is to say a very little about the year just past and mention just a couple of the projects about which you'll hear a little more in a moment. And then my co-director, Catherine May of St Saviour and St Olave's, will no doubt introduce herself as she takes us from step to step through that idea of the partnership as connecting schools, connecting teachers, connecting pupils. And then it'll be my pleasure just around 6 o'clock, before you perhaps take up the breakout opportunity, to say a thank you to those who've contributed. Well, before anything else, what a great year it's been. I suppose we all thought as we started the year of 2021 with so much still happening virtual, that might mean the lessening of activity, instead of which really SSLP went into overdrive and managed to do so much. And the two projects I'll mention just at the outset really are symbolic of that. It was fantastic to continue our Thinking About series and to have that as something that always feels, to me, thoroughly democratic across the schools. We find pupils to lead on every talk in that series, one from a state school, one from an independent school, or more from each schools, to introduce a speaker on a matter vocational or a cause-based topic or something academic. And the series in 2021 was absolutely fantastic, and our thanks to Sue Mulholland and Katie as the main forces making sure that happened week by week by week and built up a very loyal audience in and beyond SSLP. The other project we were so pleased to be able to engage with, that we might have thought that we did delay a little through the year and wondered whether we'd ever get to a position where we could let it carry forward as we wanted to, was our anti-racism project. Last year was the year that we really put flesh on the idea that we don't just want to talk about giving the students a voice, we want to give them a voice and ask how they want to use that voice. And last year they told us that they wanted anti-racism to be a core project, and my goodness, didn't they carry that forward, with particular help from Michelle Ferguson and the team that she put around her at SSSO. We developed something that led to a conference, to the films that became ingredients of Year 8 wellbeing and PHSE curriculums through our schools. What a fantastic project that was, and our thanks to the filmmaker Lawrence Lee, who we loved working with towards that. What's come through this year is that for those who SSLP touches in our schools, teachers, leaders, pupils, it means a great deal, but we've probably got more work to do in spreading the word among our schools, and perhaps tonight with the links online and with enthusiastic new teachers coming to the story of SSLP, one of the things we'll be keen to do is that ensure that when we judge the impact of our work year by year by year, there's a greater knowledge of it among pupils, certainly, but probably among teachers and leaders too. And I'm using that as a way to introduce our first speaker of the evening, and that is Joe Mcginn of Impact Ed, because Impact Ed have done the first impact report on the work of SSLP over a given year. It's full of those things that come when you set up a baseline in this sort of auditing. We live in a world of auditing. I bet all of our schools are in the situation we're in of hardly a week or two going by without us asking some constituency, the pupils, the parents, our colleagues, or contributing something beyond, where we want to set something to see where we are at the moment. And we've done that with reference to our work. And I hope I'm not stealing too much of Joe's thunder to say that what's come through there is that sense that I've already given you, that where our work is known, and for those it touches directly, it is making a great impact. But I hope this very exercise of listening to Joe and his impressions of our first impact report can help us towards where we should go next. There are many more voices to hear from as we celebrate work past and work to come. So I'll say no more now, but welcome you all online, particularly people new to SSLP and new to the schools of SSLP. I hope this gives you a flavor of how you could contribute in the months ahead. And to say, Joe, you are very welcome as you introduce the first Impact Ed report of a 3-year program we brought into with you to judge how widely our work is known and how we can judge its impact.
Brilliant, thanks, Joe. So I know you've got a packed agenda, so I'll try and keep this summary to no more than 5 minutes. But yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to meet you all this evening, and looking forward to give you a quick summary of the work that we've conducted so far. So quickly, just to run through what I'm going to try and cover in these 5 minutes. So just an introduction into who we are as an organisation and the work that we do, for those of you who might not be familiar, how we're currently working with the SSLP, the initial findings from that baseline impact report that we've conducted, and yeah, just worth reinforcing that there is a baseline, and it was just a snapshot of where everything was at that particular point in time. And obviously the point of the 3-year program is to build on that and continue to see improvements and progress. And then I'll just go through the quick outline of the next steps for the project. So for those of you who haven't heard of us, we are a non-profit. We partner with schools individually, with multi-academy trusts, with local authorities, and with school groups like this, and challenge partner hubs and other groups of schools that might be a bit more ad hoc, all with the aim of trying to help evaluate, understand, and improve impact in education. And that can range from a small intervention that a school wants to figure out if it's having impact, right the way up to a piece of work like this, which is involving many schools in across a fairly wide geographical area. But enough about us. So the work that we've been doing with SSLP, as Joe mentioned, it's a 3-year partnership. So it started last December and it'll be running until the end of December 2023. It will involve all schools in the partnership, so all 17, I believe, is that right? All 17 schools, have the opportunity to get involved in this, and we do encourage you to please do participate, and you get out as much as you put in with this kind of thing. It will involve a mixture of teacher and pupil data, so we're gathering pupil voice, as Joe mentioned, but also we want to gather an understanding of teachers' perceptions of the SSLP, and both things that it's doing well, and of course areas that it might wish to kind of improve or tweak. And I'll quickly just show you the first stage of our work, which my colleague Ella worked with Katie on, was trying to piece together the theory of change for SSLP. So this is kind of a quick snapshot, but we worked through a process where we decided, what is the SSLP trying to do? What is the challenge it's trying to address? How does it do it? And what are the intermediate and long-term outcomes? And then this is available on the report if you'd like to have a read of it, but I won't spend too much time on that. But essentially what that allowed us to do was put together a brief evaluation framework that will allow us to track improvements in those intermediate and long-term outcomes over a 3-year period. But that was the kind of the root of the evaluation. We have published that first report. I'll just give you 3 key findings from the baseline evidence, and this involved basically a questionnaire that we designed that went out to pupils, and then a separate questionnaire that went out to teachers, and then as part of one of those questions that we put out to teachers, we asked how involved they were in kind of delivering elements of SSLP, and those teachers have indicated that they were particularly involved. We've noted down on the report as engaged teachers. So we're hoping to sort of split out the impact on teachers who are really involved in SSLP and those who might be engaged in a slightly more light touch way. So the first sort of research question we wanted to ask was what could be learnt about the SSLP from the responses that were given by pupils. And I'll just summarize this. The initial data collected suggests that pupils currently don't have too great a knowledge of the SSLP or the role it plays in their education, but this probably isn't a surprise this early on in the partnership, and obviously anticipation and the aim is to try and improve that over the next 2 years and get young people and pupils really fully aware of the work that the SSLP does and how that impacts on their education. Then the second research question was what could be learned about the SSLP from the responses given by all teachers who completed that questionnaire, and we had around 80 or so teachers complete this last year. So we tracked the questionnaire and broke it into different elements, so their engagement in SSLP, their attendance, knowledge and awareness, and one of what we thought was the most interesting trends was present in responses to the questions regarding engagement, where teachers were aware of specific SSLP events and activities such as the Thinking About talks, but fewer teachers encourage their pupils to participate at the moment. But a really encouraging sign was that no teacher who completed the questionnaire indicated that they wanted to leave the partnership at all. So particularly for a baseline, it's a pretty encouraging result so far. And then that third research question on what could be learnt about the SSLP from that cohort of particularly engaged teachers who've been more heavily involved. So those teachers, sort of understandably and maybe predictably scored higher on the knowledge and awareness of the partnership with a score of, if you read the report, this placed into context, but 4.17 out of 5 on those particular measures. And 38% of those who took the survey said their pupils often or always engaged with SSLP events and activities. So clearly teachers who are engaging in a slightly heavier touch way with the work of the SSLP appears to be having a knock-on impact on their pupils, on both their pupils' awareness and their engagement in those activities. So appreciate that was a really whistle-stop tour, but I hope it's given you an idea of the kind of things that we're trying to capture and measure here. Next steps, we're planning to do another round of surveys both with teachers and with pupils, ideally shortly before half term, and then we'll do a follow-up in June. Our next report will be written over the course of summer 2022, so I may very well see all of you this time next year and presenting another summary then. And then we will repeat for one more year up until December 2023. And just worth saying, the whole point of, this isn't Ofsted, this isn't giving the SSLP a grade. The whole point of these sorts of evaluations is to be formative. It's all about trying to help you understand, what's going well, what can you improve on, and, obviously to share best practice and share the work and great impact that you're doing. So I think I wasn't watching the clock. I think I've kept to 5 minutes, but I will, just hand back over to Joe and Katie if anybody's got any quick fire questions at all.
Well, thank you for asking for any questions. And what I should have said at the outset is, of course, we'd encourage using the chat function so it doesn't get too busy and noisy across the meeting. So if anybody did have any questions for Joe, what I'll say is we won't necessarily hold up now. Please put them through now. And if Joe doesn't mind staying online for a few minutes, at least say 5 minutes or so, we will move on to the next stage. I will let Catherine pick up now and lead things forward. But if anything comes for Joe, I'll interrupt after section 1 on connecting schools, or after a section if something comes, and just ask Joe before you leave us if you'd comment on that. But no, thank you very much. Katie tells me you're not just saying it publicly here, you'd say that's not a bad start. That's a good baseline to work from, without it sounding too Machiavellian. You, of course, don't want too good a baseline. It is encouraging to us to really work hard at that tie-break situation where, do we really push this one, or do we let it go? Or do we really make clear to pupils this is SSLP, if we feel we should do that, rather than there is this event? I mean, I think that's what's come through. Catherine was giving an example the other day where, work that we're doing, which is SSLP work, a questionnaire that children are asked to fill in, the girls she asked didn't know that it was SSLP, but when they were told, oh, of course, this is what we're already doing in this space. And it's really for us to decide how much we want to force that in our schools, whether that becomes important to us. And that's a debate that we'll have as the year goes on, and starting now. And there is a first question, and I think it's a question probably to we leaders of the group as well as to Joe. Interesting, more students have participated than teachers. Do we think that teachers see their role as promoters at present in most schools? Katie, how would you describe the relationship as you see it, albeit you would say probably you're at one remove, between the link teacher and the schools? I'm going to dare say I think it's quite various. There are some passionate link teachers who encourage colleagues and encourage pupils, and there are links who maybe are just getting to know us or have come new to it, or perhaps for whom this is one of many jobs they do, for whom that's not always the keynote. Katie, any comments before we move on?
No, I think you've covered it there, Joe. I mean, we would expect more students and teachers to respond, or would hope for that, because there are more students than teachers at the end of the day, and we want to see more of them involved. What we would like to see at the next round, which we'll do, be the same questions coming round just before half term, is more schools involved. And that really does come down to the link teachers who it goes out to, and then that shared wider throughout the schools, and to get that representation across the board.
No, thank you for that. That we could have said that this is actually from a minority of our schools that these stats were collated. So that's the next job really for us, is to encourage every school to contribute. Joe, I think I should say thank you very much, and you're very welcome to stay with us and learn and hear a little more. But when you have to leave us, please just do. But on behalf of SSLP, thank you to you and to Impact Ed, and indeed, if you're still in touch with it, to Ella for starting this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine.
Thank you. I was just going to say thank you to Joe, and thank you to Joe. Joe Spence, thank you for the introduction. Joe Mcginn, thank you. That was really, really interesting. And one of the things that I really love about the partnership of SSLP is that we're just really direct and honest, and actually, like so many things in education, we're often great at starting projects, less good at evaluating them and looking at the impact. And this is us taking a really proactive step. We're asking teachers to invest their time, we're asking schools to invest their money, and we need to demonstrate that actually that's all having an impact on the students. So I'm really excited about what this is going to show us and help us shape where we can go and have maximum impact for our students. So thank you. I would like to add my welcome to everybody that's joining us, whether you are new to SLP or you've been here before. Thank you for joining us in this virtual world that we're all getting used to, or actually quite used to now, and we were hoping to start to leave behind. We are really hoping that at some point soon we will have an actual physical gathering, but this really did seem to make the most sense for the beginning of this year. And I hope that everybody's term has started well, and I wish you all the best for this year ahead. So as Joe said earlier, I am head teacher of St Saviour's and St Olaf's, very proud to be so, and also proud to be co-director of the Southwark Schools Learning Partnership. We are 17 schools that have one thing in common, and that is the young people in our schools. We all, apart from that, have our differences, our different strengths, but we all come together in the interest of young people in and around Southwark. So again, thank you all for being here. Now, we kind of summarise I guess you'd say our mission statement into 3 areas. We are about, the whole reason for us being is to connect our schools, connect our teachers, and connect our students. Fundamentally, we're doing that for the benefit of our students. So we've grouped this evening's presentations into those areas. So we're going to, first of all, hear about how we did do some connecting of schools last year, which at one point last year we really thought was going to be incredibly difficult, and actually it turned out to be in some ways easier doing it virtually. So we're going to hear first of all about connecting our schools, what did happen, and something of what might happen into the future. We're then going to hear about connecting our teachers, and then about connecting our students. And Katie is going to guide us through each of those sections. So Katie, I'm going to hand over to you for the first time, but not for the last today, to talk us through connecting schools.
Hi, thank you, Catherine. So I'm Katie Beretta, I'm the SSLP coordinator, and I'm going to try and rattle through the offerings that we had last year and just tell you a bit more about them. So the first one up there is the SSLP Launch. So this time last year, we did our first virtual launch of the partnership, and we gathered together 90 staff from 12 of our SSLP schools live, and I know others watched it online. Later on in the year, oh, excuse my highlighting there. Later on in the year, we had an artist talk, which the SSLP Creative Hub organised. That had painter Jade Fadojitimi, apologies, speaking to students from 5 of our schools. We did Oxbridge and medical mock interviews. Now, last year we had 71 mock Oxbridge interviews, which were all done online. They came from 7 different schools, with 5 schools doing the interviewing, so it's sort of spread out between the schools there. We also did 12 mock multi-mini medicine interviews, all online, and that's a pretty crazy event where each student has 7 mini interviews, which actually worked really well online because I didn't have to go and grab them out of rooms. I could just close the breakout rooms and they all popped back in with me. 25 of those students that were interviewed that I know of got successful offers. There may have been more, I don't hear back from everybody, so at least 25 of those got successful offers, which was fantastic. So this year we will do the same again. We will have virtual interviews, we will do virtual multi-mini mock medicine interviews. I already know of 114 potential Oxbridge applicants coming from SSLP state schools, which is an incredible total. It's going to keep me very busy trying to match them up with interviewers. If anybody thinks that they could do a mock interview in any subject, let me know. Anyone would like to sort of learn how to do that and observe a mock interview that's taking place, also let me know and you'll be ready for next year. That would be fantastic. We've got DC online support this year as well. So this is Dulwich College. They're running 5 subjects of weekly sort of preparation. So if you've got a young person who is looking to apply to Oxbridge in English, history, law, maths or PPE, and they are not already signed up to this course, send me an email and I'll see if I can get them in if there's any remaining spaces. Okay. Another thing that we did was the Pathetique Sonata, which was an interactive web lesson, which is a really lovely format. So talking through a lesson, a set piece that a lot of the schools do, and just putting that lesson out with, across the web with exercises happening. It worked really nicely, and we had 4 schools attending that. Beethoven. Thank you to the Music Hub and for organising that. And Trying to see my notes. 4 schools contributed recordings. We put them all together and we had a massive sort of meme choir coming together from all of our schools that Peter amazingly managed to edit all together. It was fantastic. It's still online, so there'll be a link to that going out afterwards that you can see if you haven't seen it already. It was a really great musical collaboration when we couldn't get together and do it. SSLP photographic. I will invite Ben Eggleton to say a few words to this if he wants to.
Yes, hello, my name is Ben Eggleton. I'll be taking over from Rob running the SSLP photographic competition. It was great to see last year's photos included at the beginning of this, and I hope that this next year can be as successful. This year we've got 5 new themes each month, starting with texture, then shadows, interesting perspectives, leading lines and colour. And I think Katie will be uploading the poster for this in the chat for you to then share around your schools. We would love for as many students as possible to get involved with this, and also for as many staff to get involved as well. We do run 2 competitions, one for staff and one for students. And then each month there is a prize, or again, one for the staff and one for the students. At the end of the competition, we do a best photo prize that is selected from all 5 different categories. And we also do a best portfolio prize. So you have to have all 5 photos for each month within that. And these prizes are slightly more substantial, so there's a bit more of an incentive for you to keep submitting your photos throughout the competition. To register, it's on the poster, so please find the details there, but it's also on this slide. So please email me at street.photocomp@jags.org.uk. Please include the full name of the student or yourself, the name of your school, the year group of that student, and if you're a member of staff, just say staff, and then your school email address. The deadline for registering is the 10th of October, and I hope to see all of you register, and yes, I hope it will be successful. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for taking that on from Rob as well. That's really great. Moving on to the Young Economists work that we did last year. So the SSLP was invited to enter 6 mixed teams into a competition being run by a Cambridge University professor. That was quite exciting because it wasn't just, they came to us and said, do you have any students interested? And the idea of being able to do those mixed teams and get the students together beforehand and working together was great. They loved it so much that the head of economics at Dulwich College actually then arranged for a full-scale online conference with speakers, workshops and competitions. 8 SSLP schools got involved in that with their economic students. We had upwards of 250 students engaged on that day, which was quite incredible. And that was a virtual conference. Really, really fantastic to see something of that size coming together. The CERN Particle School is something we're very grateful for Dr. Galoni, who has left our partnership, but she still reserves some spaces for SSLP students on the CERN summer school, which happened virtually this summer. I think there were 24 available places, so 7 of those were reserved for SSLP students, and they came from 5 SSLP schools this year. So that's something that all physics A-level students are invited to take part in. They write an essay as part of the competition and then get selected to join CERN scientists for a week-long summer workshop, which is just an amazing opportunity for anyone who really wants to go on and work in the field of physics. So I really would encourage that across all your 6 forms if you have them. Moving on to thinking about, and I'm going to ask Sue to speak on this one. Sue Mulholland, hopefully your microphone's working.
I'm really hoping it is. Can I just, fantastic. Though sometimes people prefer it didn't. Right, Katie, thank you very much. So thinking about has been a very successful Zoom webinar series that was born in lockdown, and we have continued to run as a webinar with regularity. So we have roughly between 6 and 8 talks per term, and they are very much responsive to student interest and pupil voice. And we had some amazing talks last year, including David Lammy, but also on all sorts of themes and subject. And this year, we're really asking you to get involved as much as you can, either through hosting one of the talks. You may be sitting on an incredible speaker who you've wanted to contact or have contact connections with that we could invite in. And also very much encouraging your pupils to get involved in partly hosting and the Q&As. The format is the speaker will come on, talk for about 20-30 minutes at the most, and then that will be followed by a pupil-led Q&A session. Last year, as you can see, we had 23 guest speakers, 1,257 viewers, and 57 student hosts. I can't tell you the positive feedback we get from students, though they might be apprehensive or nervous in the first instance. Once they've actually done a thinking about, they are absolutely buzzing, and it's a fantastic way for them to connect with immediacy with other young people who have similar interests. What we've got coming up this year is everything from our launch talk, which is on adolescent mental health with Professor Stephen Scott. We also have How to Be a Unicorn, which myself and Katie have been debating a lot. It is a talk around economics, and again, something that will interest a lot of those students and those with interest in maths and so on. There will be talks in engineering, science, also a Dr. Omar Khalif, who is a cultural historian, who'll be talking later in the term. Thinking about identity with Reverend Rose Woods Hudson Wilkin, and I've actually just heard in the last 20 minutes that we will also possibly have Sunita Ali, an OBE. She is the master of Jesus College, Cambridge, the first woman master there. She is a broadcaster with a career in radio, who founded the production company Something Else, and she is absolutely fantastic for all of those students who are thinking aspirationally about university and beyond. So I think that just about covers what Thinking About is about. We also welcome as many of your suggestions and ideas. We still have a few slots left, 1 or 2 for this term, so don't hesitate to approach us, and please don't hesitate to approach us if there's something that we haven't covered that you would really like to see feature on the Thinking About series this year. Thank you.
I wanted to be involved because I had heard of the SSLP Thinking About sessions before, and I wanted to hone my interviewing skills, so I decided to apply to do it when my teacher told me about it. I interviewed David Lammy, the current Shadow Lord Chancellor, and I also interviewed Ronan, an apprentice reporter at Bloomberg. During the interview, I felt proud to do it, not only because I was chosen, but because I was interviewing such high-profile people, like an apprentice at Bloomberg, one of the biggest companies, and also one of the Shadow Lord Chancellors and a Member of Parliament. And afterwards, I felt that I had taken all the information needed from those interviews to pursue my journalism aspirations. I used the skills I got from the interview to interview my head teacher in my school, and I think it really helped because I ended up getting praise by not only my teachers, but from my fellow students. My favorite part about being a co-host was probably the interviewee's response, because it was always very detailed and informative, and it always left me thinking after the interview was finished.
That's Joel from Westminster City School, and sharing why he got involved in Thinking About. A couple more schools projects that we did. So there was the Hydrogen Agents project run by Queen's College London. A project asking students to imagine how they would safely use hydrogen as a domestic fuel source. And then resources and support is something that the SSLP is, as member schools, you can access it. So particularly last year when we had the teacher assessed grades, that suddenly out of nowhere, no one knows how to do this. You could ask across the school and pull on resources. So if you're a single department, single teacher department, you can ask other departments. So just something to say here is there's resource and support and help across the SSLP if you want it. It's a case of asking for it. And I can quickly mention the SCIT programs as well. So we have teacher trainers. I think we've got a couple of teachers here who are training in modern foreign languages, in physics and in maths, and they get their training at Dulwich College, but they do placements in your schools. And it's really nice to have that network where we're training the next generation of teachers as well. So the final thing is a brand new thing for next year that I want to share with you. Based on how successful Thinking About is we're doing something for Key Stage 3, so those younger students. It's careers based. We're going to be holding a lunchtime webinar, short half hour, where your students in their class groups can listen to a career that they might be interested in. Lunchtimes don't match up across our schools, so there are 2 sessions, a session A and a session B, that you can sign up to. The details are on that screen and they will be emailed out to your schools as well. I'm aware of time, so it's probably best I just move on. Our first one is Daisy Fernandez on the 7th of October, and she is a video game designer.
Kate, I just want to remind people that you've added a couple of documents into the chat. So you've added our review of the year and you've added that poster. So please do, people, look at the chat before you go. But I'm going to move us swiftly on. So we've looked in that impressive collection of things that we've done to connect schools. Let's move on now to look at us connecting teachers.
Connecting teachers, very quickly, we've heard about the Music Hub that came together and did the Beethoven. So let's now look at Play on Macbeth. So over to Ben.
So yeah, we've got some slides and then we've got some students talking. So Project Macbeth worked with 4 schools. We did CPDL delivered by Cheek by Jowl, associate artist from Cheek by Jowl, with myself and Emma Walkie-Williams from Compass School over 3 full days between May and October 2021. Teachers, student teachers, young actors explored space, character, language, objects in the morning sessions. Here's some of the feedback on Twitter, some pictures from the CPDL. And the CPDL focused on our 5-step approach. We went through our 5-step approach with the students, with the teachers, and they took them back into their classrooms. And Emma, if you're there, if you could just share some of the feedback about how it's actually going on the ground would be great. I think you've got about 23 seconds before we get cut off.
A very specific timing, Mr. May. So students historically, I don't know about everyone else in English, struggle with recognising authors' use of structure and the author's intentions behind what it is that they are actually writing. And the 5-step approach has been revolutionary for us in forcing students to really think about why things happen in the order that they happen and really recognising those authors' decisions that have been made for a specific impact. So it's been, as I said, revolutionary in the classroom in really unlocking these really challenging texts for our young people.
Lovely, thank you, Emma. We continue. So a little bit of feedback from Cheek by Jowl, who are a theatre company, if people know them. They've been working with us and they've found a great experience. We've got our last one hosted by Dulwich College by Joe on the 7th of October. Between October last year and this year, 16 young people came together to rehearse and perform Macbeth at Theatre Peckham. We rehearsed online, socially distant, and we had a live performance back in June to our SSLP schools. And here is some feedback from our young people.
I learned how to uncover text that seems unfamiliar to me and seems far removed from my everyday life, and working on it and accessing it so that I understand it and make it be understood and be enjoyed by the people who came to see us.
The thing I loved the most about the rehearsal process was working with other people to develop your characters, because I feel like it's very important. Because when you're at home learning your lines by yourself, it's entertaining, but it's not really, it doesn't really help you build. But when you're with other people, working with them, it really helps create the world. It makes your character look more interesting.
I enjoyed the process of seeing the play from the start and then finally the finished production. I thought that was really cool. And meeting new people, lots of interesting.
Obviously, I enjoyed my part because I was a witch, and I really enjoyed. Actually, it's just the bonds I made. That's one thing I would genuinely say, especially because we'd had such a long time, especially during this pandemic, and not seeing everybody and seeing them on Zoom was just so long. I wish anyone who's been doing the shows right now, it takes a lot, so to be able to have that bond and connection with other people during this time has been amazing, and that's something I really will take away from it. Yeah.
It was the vitality of teamwork and keeping to that iambic rhythm, otherwise everything could fail.
What I enjoyed the most was the way that all the different people complemented each other really well. Found that quite interesting.
I learned how important it is to stick to, and how difficult acting is, and how important it is to stick to the role and have commitment. Because even though throughout COVID we've had these rehearsals, it's important to stick to it because we create something amazing in the end. So I feel like that's very a good payoff.
I think the production was really, really good, and having the modern twist to it was a really nice finish from all the professional actors.
I really enjoyed the fact that we were able to incorporate new writing into such a classic text and make it understandable for the people who came to watch us, and made it a bit more accessible to them, and developed it in a different world to what it's used to be.
That you can take any little idea and make it your own, and how big of an impact that can have on something that is traditionally done in a certain way, and making yours unique.
The professionalism that I was exposed to was one of the main things
I've
that I
learned
enjoyed.
to be more positive and generous with my energy, which is something I try to strive to be in my everyday life, but being in a rehearsal situation kind of amplifies that, and I've learned to be more confident in my ideas and opinions.
Well, you have to be very patient with these type of things, and with what I want to do at school, it requires a lot of patience, so yeah.
They loved it, and they said they wanted more witches. That's all I'm going to say. I will take that, and they really appreciate how fun and lively everyone was, and especially with the play like Macbeth, where it's very heavy. They appreciated the fact that there was a lot of lightness, and our youth came through in that. So very grateful. That's what people say. It's not my words, whatever.
They loved it. They thought it was amazing. They definitely mentioned the hard work. It was something that they mentioned, because they were with me from the beginning, from the very beginning, from the first audition. They were with me through the Saturdays, the long 10-hour rehearsals, the ones over Zoom. So they said it definitely paid off, and it created an amazing show.
So my mum came to every evening one, and each night she said it got better, and she really liked how unique it was. So it was very enjoyable. And my friends from Charlton who came on the first performance said that they thought it was very professional and also really enjoyed it. So that was very good.
Yeah, my parents came to watch it, and they really liked the fact that we made it accessible to people, and we took the context of the play but put it in a world that would be familiar to many people, and we made it more enjoyable for people, and they really loved that.
I couldn't help but respond straight away when Ben sent this morning. You will love listening to these young people, and you know, it sometimes can be overdone, but the confidence that they'd obviously got from this project comes through. Do you know what, Ben? I think we even saw that seeing their faces without hearing the words, and that goes on through all your 6 actors, and the pride in this project and their understanding comes through.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Katie, for your support. And as I say, our last one is with yourselves at Dulwich College on the 7th. So we look forward to it. Great.
Thank you.
Next thing to talk about very quickly is the Anti-Racism Conference for Teachers. So we ran a conference that had teachers and students present on the same day, which is rather ambitious. It was an online event. We had 29 teachers representing 13 of the SSLP schools in attendance, and they had a packed agenda. There was a keynote speaker, there was a panel discussion, we had breakout rooms, there was a lot happening all around the topic of anti-racism and what we were doing in our schools. So it was a great way of bringing everyone together. Professional development, if I can ask Alice, Mollison and Patrick Whibley, please.
Hi, lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining. So I'm Assistant Head Teaching and Learning at JAGS, and I worked with Patrick to run this project last year because we really wanted to pull together teaching colleagues in middle leadership or aspiring middle leadership positions. We organised a selection of different talks. There were 4 sessions, including how to develop a strong team, tackling difficult conversations, and employment law. The feedback was really positive, and we were really delighted with the attendance throughout. We had over 50 teachers taking part, and many of them came to all 4 sessions. And I think this was a particular success because last year was probably one of the most difficult years most colleagues have had in terms of upskilling with IT and all those sorts of hybrid teaching and all that. And so the fact they were really committed to creating strong teams and their own professional development was absolutely brilliant. We listened to the feedback from some of the attendees, and there was a strong demand for revisiting it and running this again for a different group. And so I will pass on to Patrick, who will explain the project for this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. It needs to be recognised. It's particularly Alice and Katie's hard work that made last year's series such a great success. It's a wonderful forum for SSLP teachers to work together. So as you can see on the right hand of the slide, we've targeted this year's series at the more experienced middle leaders, those who are considering routes into senior leadership. And it should be added that this series would also suit anyone new to a senior role. The aim is to focus on the move from head of year, head of department, equivalent positions to any role that encompasses a whole school remit. We want to cover academic, pastoral, and further aspects of senior leadership. And we have 3 top-notch speakers representing very different domains. So first in November, John Tomset will look at whole school curriculum design. You may recognize his name. He's a co-author of a book called Curriculum Conversations with Mary Myatt. And then in January, Chris Moyes has established himself as a prominent speaker, focusing on ways in which we develop teachers. He'll encourage you to examine your existing performance management and appraisal system from a perspective of what he calls improve rather than prove. He's a really hard speaker to pin down, so we're delighted to have him lead our 2nd session. And then Jessica McQuaid is a relatively new head teacher who, aside from sharing her own trajectory from head of English via assistant head, deputy head, she'll be outlining ways in which she's preparing aspiring leaders for SLT applications, both from an academic and pastoral perspective. I've worked with Jessica at Mulberry School for Girls in Tower Hamlets. I've always found her advice to be really practical and insightful. So she joins us in February. We've kept the first 3 sessions on Zoom because it helped to keep last year's series accessible across the partnership. I think that's why we saw such good numbers throughout. All 3 will run from 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. We do hope, however, that the group will then join us at Dulwich College on the 25th of May for a panel Q&A with a range of SSLP school leaders and a barbecue. Katie Beretta has promised it will be around 25 degrees that day with blue skies. So we hope to see many of you then, and thank you for listening.
I hope I'm not going to be held to that. There's a link for registration in the chat. And so the final thing I put on here is the SSLP Counsellors Hub. There's a number of hubs across the SSLP, and we can create more. They can come, they can go. They're groups of teachers with similar interests who want to share ideas. The Counsellors Hub started up last year. It's a new one. They met 3 or 4 times virtually, and they just shared good practice and made connections with each other, and it was really nice, and we're really happy to see more of those coming online as well. Catherine.
Thank you, Katie. I will be brief because I am very conscious of time. That's made me reflect on 2 things. One, I wonder if actually we should be calling this section Connecting Staff rather than Connecting Teachers. And then we've got 3 S's, which works even better. But also, I hope that that leadership training that we did last year and that we are planning for this year, I hope that is something that all of you kind of involved in this evening will consider, whether for yourself or for people in your schools. It was one of the most appreciated things I think we've done in a while. And yeah, really grateful to Jags for taking that on for us, because one of the things that we must be aiming to do is continually to develop our staff and looking ahead to those people that will take over from us. So a great opportunity there for lots of people. And Katie, now to the heart of the matter, to connecting our students.
So this is probably one of the most difficult things to do virtually, connecting our students together, because it is so lovely when we can actually bring them together. But some things that worked well, that worked better when done virtually. So Beginners Arabic, we've run for a number of years, SOAS teacher teaching Arabic, but that getting to Dulwich College after school on an evening has proved really difficult. And we tend to only have 1 or 2 students per year. Last year it was run online, and we had 12 students doing Beginners Arabic. Sorry, Jenny, I see a note in the chat. I'll get that sorted out. So yeah, just really fantastic to have so many students signing up. 2 of them carried on right to the end of June, and 1 of them is now looking to do Arabic at university. Then Queen's College London ran a poetry workshop, which happened online, and the students explored poems dealing with issues of race, culture and identity. We had the 6th form science quiz, which again online brought together 26 teams from 7 SSLP schools. Again, that really benefited from not having to sort of traipse across the borough, but to get the schools together, and we were able to use like online forms and quizzes for that. The Stock Market Challenge brought together 58 teams from across the SSLP to Queen's College London's annual Stock Market Challenge. A big improvement on previous years. And the debating. So debating didn't happen last year due to the COVID. We had to stop it, unfortunately, the year before. But we have got the offer of some more funding to get debating happening in our schools using DebateMate. So I will remind everyone about this, but we've so far only had 2 schools interested in starting or improving the debating clubs within their schools. So if you think debating could be improved in your school by working with DebateMate, then we potentially have some funding to make that happen. And we'd look to have a competition between all the schools that were taking part as well. So do take that back into your schools, and let's see if we can take that forward this year. Moving on to student voice. We've talked about the conference that we held last year that brought together 79 students from 14 schools. They explored their own experiences of racism in the community, racism in our schools, and how we can make our schools anti-racist establishments. Then in the spring term, the students worked on film projects, bringing together their own voices of anti-racism. And they collaborated across different schools and made 4 fantastic films, which are all available on the website and hopefully are being used in your schools this year. And then we had a film screening at Theatre Peckham, which was our one event where we could get everyone together, which was so nice. I've got a couple of pictures there of the students being given that opportunity to represent their schools, represent their cluster of schools, and to speak in front of a real live audience. And if this works with the sound, I'll just share a couple of the girls talking.
Hi, my name is Jolanda, and I chose to be a part of this project because I feel like racism within institutions is not spoken about globally.
Hi, my name is Kumba, and I chose to be a part of this project because racism is a passion of mine which needs to be tackled. Today I am here to present to you our project as we have put together over the course of 4 weeks. During this time, we worked hard to speak on issues that many people of colour go through as a result of institutionalised racism, specifically focusing on microaggressions within schools.
As a whole, we had decided to make this film to highlight some jokes that school kids may make, which they don't know is a form of racism and discrimination. We had the idea to use body paints and other graphics to show that jokes could leave a lasting mark on our emotions, even if no physical attack has taken place.
We had many meetings where we sat as a whole through Zoom as we discussed the different things we could do together. This included us talking about our views on racism and how it has personally affected us, even challenging our perspectives.
Questions such as, can people in authority be racist? Can our friends be racist? Are only white people racist? And does history make us racist? We created a lesson plan which follows the same pattern.
The classes asked one of these questions, then watched the video before conducting a short exercise. This would challenge the minds of young kids who have maybe done these things or have been a victim to racism.
We hope you enjoyed this presentation and learned something new.
And appreciate the work we have done as a whole.
Rattling on through and looking at this year. And I've lost that too. This is not going well, isn't it? How do I go back? There we go. So this year we asked the students, what did they want to talk about? What did they want their voice to be? 1,024 SSLP students voiced their opinion very loudly to us, and 446 of those students requested that we talk about mental health. So that is what we are doing this year, and we will do it in everything that we do. We will focus our thinking about talks on it. We will hold a student conference for it. We will train teachers in mental health. Anything that we can think of. We will be looking at student mental health across the board. We'll be looking to have 2 student representatives from each school joining a council to help us shape some of those activities. So again, you'll be hearing from me about that to select those students and see what activities they come up with, what projects they want to do and what they want to implement in their schools. So adolescent mental health. If that's our focus, I want to really, let's take a look at what is happening in Suffolk, around us at the moment, outside of our schools, but affecting our schools. So I'm going to ask Rory, hoping you're still there, Rory. Sorry, we're running a little bit late.
That's okay, I'm still here.
You can speak to us.
Great, fantastic, Katie. Shall I share my slides as well? Or? Great. So I'm Rory. I work at Citizens UK, which is I know some of you should be aware of because some of your schools are actually a part of Citizens UK. I'm just going to get my slide. Oh, there we go. I am sharing. Fantastic. So basically, Citizens UK uses the methodology of community organising in order to make communities stronger develop leaders, and enable people to get the change that they want to be seeing in their local communities. And at the beating heart of this is often the work that we do with schools. And in our local alliance of Southwark, this is especially the case. So we've got 24 member institutions across Southwark, many of which are schools, and it really is an alliance that's driven by its students. And what you'll kind of see in this picture over here is a student from Notre Dame speaking on their Positive Images campaign, which they worked on over the last 2 years in order to get the local police in Southwark to start sharing more positive images of young people and stop sharing pictures of knives on their social media, as the young people felt that this was having a negative impact on the perception of youth in the local area. And that was a really great campaign, and they managed to succeed in it. But I think what was the really remarkable thing about that campaign was actually the process in itself. It was a process that engaged with 2,000 people across Southwark, and was all led by the students. They ran the agendas, they strategized about how to build those relationships with decision makers, and ultimately when they won that change, they owned it completely. Can I have the next slide, please, Katie? Great. Oh, it's actually me controlling the slides. Apologies for that. But I'm here, of course, to talk about our large mental health campaign, which is going on across all of South London. Now, this has been a mental health campaign that was launched in reaction to the pandemic. We ran a listening campaign with communities across all of the South London boroughs that listened to 6,000 people in South London. And one of the things that came up as a priority issue, largely because a lot of the people doing that listening were actually our schools in our kind of membership, was young people's mental health in schools. And this was identified as like a priority issue that the community wanted us to work with them to get the mental health trusts to act on. And the reason that I want to talk about this is because this piece of work was actually where students again really shone. And I want to share a very brief story with you about Sydenham School in Lewisham. So Sydenham School, like many other institutions involved, did a lot of listening. They actually students listened to over 100 other students in their school, all over lockdown as well, quite impressively, all done online. And what they actually kind of identified as a priority issue was the lack of support available to people in long waiting times for CAMHS. And so through that listening and getting on board lots of other schools across South London, what they did once that listening was done is they worked with South London citizens to have a meeting with all of their organisers, so with all of the decision makers in the local mental health trusts that make up South London. And what they did with them is they presented their case for a virtual CAMHS waiting room, which essentially would be providing support to people who are waiting for an appointment with CAMHS. And again, they were successful, and it culminated in a large event where we had 2 brilliant students from Sydenham School putting the case towards Martin Wilkinson, a director at the CCG in South East London, and they got a yes. But again, that was impressive, but the really impressive thing was the story of how we got there. That involved students really coming together, strategizing, running meetings, sitting down and doing agendas with their local citizens organisers or even their school members of staff. And that's why I kind of want to talk to you about the next phase of the project, which is just on the next slide, which is the school mental health hubs. Now, this is going to be very much phase 2 of South London Listens. And what we're doing is we're working with schools across all of South London and asking them to become a mental health hub. And you might be asking me, okay, what does it mean to be a mental health hub? Well, actually, to be a mental health hub, you're probably fulfilling a lot of this criteria based on the brilliant work that I heard was going on in all of your schools in this call that has just been on. But the really fantastic thing about being a mental health hub is the process of creating one, a great opportunity for students to kind of develop their leadership potential and skills by working with other schools across South London, as well as many brilliant schools in Southwark. And the last point I really want to kind of bring across to you is this last thing on this page, which is part of being a hub will be taking action in the wider community. And the reason we put that there is because these hubs are going to be a way for schools to stay very much connected with their local mental health trust. And that's something that we managed to achieve in South London Listens. We built a relationship with schools that are often seldom heard by their local mental health trusts. And we want to make those relationships that have been created stronger. And we also want to extend them to other schools that haven't been in the process so far. And so if you're interested in being a part of this very exciting campaign and giving a great opportunity to your students to be leaders in it, please do get in contact with either myself, the project manager of South London Listens, or Hannah Gretton, who is the organiser in Southwark, as well as the head of South East London. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rory. And what Rory hasn't said is that there's a meeting tomorrow night about this project, and I will attend that, and anyone else is welcome to attend. So get in touch with me if you've got anything you want me to say, or if you would like more details about attending, let me know and I'll pass those on. Thank you, Rory, and thank you for—
Could I just quickly add as well, Katie, in one of the pictures, we also had the brilliant Joe Ray from Dulwich College, who was involved in this project, and was a real, in terms of staff, leading force in getting that virtual CAMS waiting room idea off the ground. So I just want to kind of pay homage to her as well, because she was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, Rory. And that's actually a really nice connection back into our schools and things that is happening in our schools. And we have examples of good practice that we are going to be exploring over the next few weeks and months and sharing that amongst everybody. Anthony has put a link to a file in the chat about what Westminster City School are doing, so that's worth looking at. On screen now, I've got some work that City Heights and EACT academies have been doing. So we will be continuing to explore this across all of our schools, how we can work together to improve, but how we can share the good practice and things that we are already doing in our schools. And Joe, I'm handing over to you.
And I will be very, very swift, but simply say, as it says on the screen, a thank you. Great to have guest speakers. Joe I left us after his presentation on Impact Ed, but our grateful thanks to him. And Rory, you've brought the project that we're going to do this year to life. We work with great agencies on the anti-racism project, and I think you've given everyone on screen great confidence that it's great to have Citizens UK as our partner for the mental health project, and we look forward to the conferencing and to the making of materials with you in the months ahead. Thank you for being with us this evening. That means an awful lot to us. I think really one of the most important things that we share was just passed through on a one line and one sentence from Katie, and of all the things we've heard, once I've said my thank yous to all those who led on one of the great events of the year, and particularly said how great it was to see the students speaking in their own right, and do look at Ben's cast when you get a chance to see that clip, is about the sharing of resources and support. One of the joys of SSLP isn't just the great events and the bringing together people formally, but when one of those emails hits Katie's email inbox, or Catherine's or mine, that says, no, we'd love to do a work scrutiny of a given subject, or we're doing this departmental review, or could anybody possibly give a couple of sessions, we're one teacher down, and SSLP comes to the rescue. And I think that's a great service that we can offer, and one that should never be underrated. And I mention it in the hope that that might just resonate in one of those grey November days where you think, where do I go when I need a bit of help with X? And you might believe, after being online with us for the last hour and 15 minutes, that it just might be that SSLP have the answer. I hope that in our work on mental health this year, and in so much else, we'll be able to meet in person, as well as online, but it's great that you all have been able to see just what we've managed to do in what I described as the overdrive of being able to work online through 2021. We've talked, though, about an event. 25th of May, with the guarantee of good weather, we will be at Dulwich. We would have been hosting today. I think we've still got over 60 people online. We had 70 at one stage. I doubt if you could all have got here at 5 o'clock this evening and stayed and had what we've managed to share in person. But on the 25th of May, if not before that, we would love to host what would have been today's event and entertain you here and give you really an SSLP celebratory party, as well as just the giving over of information, which tonight has been about. There's been talk of finance at times, and that's always tight, and we're very aware of that. We run on the subscription. We run on the £1,000 subscription, or a little less if you're a school without a sixth form or other form of associate or whatever it might be. But that is our capital for any given year, unless we can find some funding from trusts, foundations, DFE, and we've been increasingly successful with that. But I would just say tonight that we have managed to secure from a donor, the first sort of private donor to SSLP, a match funding of that grant that you make us by the subscriptions to look to do extra work this year, perhaps most especially in the mental health space, perhaps getting someone for a thinking about talk of the sort of substance that we couldn't get without a fee or something like that, or to arrange another conference day. So we look forward really confidently to the work of 2021-22. We look forward to using the new technology with which we've become increasingly adept over the year, but we also look forward to being in each other's company. My final thanks are to my co-director, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine, for taking us through today and for what you all do throughout. And on your behalf and mine, and on behalf of all of the links who work with her week in, week out, our grateful thanks to Katie. SSLP is held together. It's a model by a coordinator who cares as passionately as Katie does, who is there for us whenever anything can be made to happen. And all of the other partnerships around the country really are all desperately looking for a Katie, but thankfully she doesn't want to live too far away from here, so we've still got her. But I wonder, ladies and gentlemen, if that's what you join me on finally. We are coordinated by somebody who cares deeply about this partnership, is really the adhesive that keeps us together and keeps it going. And I think that should be our last word of thanks, as well as Katie, Catherine and me thanking all of you for being online tonight, for what you did last year and for what we hope you'll do in 21-22. Katie, it's breakout time.
It is breakout time. And what I'm going to suggest, because not too many people have got time to stay for the breakout rooms, and I appreciate we've already gone over, and quite a few of the selected rooms only had one person in them. Anyone who wants to stay for a breakout, we're going to stay in this room and we will chat through the subjects that are on for discussion.
Okay.
So if anyone needs to go now, goodbye. Thank you very much. Anyone who wants to stay, we'll have a chat and see.
Oh, thank you. I do hope some can stay with you, Katie. As I know, I speak on behalf of most of the Dulwich team. We've got a parents' evening, a meeting year 10 live happening in just a few minutes now. So I will go to that. But best wishes, everybody, and thank you for your support for SSLP. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.